and shop.
SABC News plays a critical role in providing unbiased and reliable news. We have a well-established reputation of uncovering, reporting and delivering news. A significant growth in popularity of our news demonstrates the demand for our news content. We continue to provide unrivaled coverage of vital events in and out of the country. Wherever the news is happening, we'll be there to bring them to you at the right time. No one has the news covered like SABC News. We lead and they follow. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
This is Newsroom on SABC News. Hello and welcome. From Johannesburg here in South Africa, I'm Eben Jansen. The show, of course, is broadcast live every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. Highlights are rebroadcast at 2 o'clock every afternoon and then repeated at 5 o'clock the next morning. We're also streaming live now on YouTube every day between 9 and 10 a.m. with the full show available all day on our very own YouTube channel. Today, well, we look at the soap opera that played itself out on the South African political landscape when two parties merged and divorced all within a week. There's also a heavy police presence in Ekangala township near Bronkhorstspruit, east of Pretoria, as police battle to maintain order in that protest-hit area. And are South African parents pushing their children too hard to become sporting world beaters? This after a young girl passed away recently. But first, let's take a look at the news headlines. Rescue teams are continuing the search for the 9 miners who are still unaccounted for after a fire broke out at Harmony's Doornkop gold mine west of Johannesburg on Tuesday night. 8 miners were rescued from an underground refuse bay. The fire has been subdued, but conditions underground remain challenging for the 10 rescue teams searching for the missing miners. Operations at the mine have since been suspended. Wage talks between the striking mining union AMCU and platinum producers have been adjourned to allow the CCMA to talk to the parties individually. The mediation process is aimed at resolving the strike at Lonmin, Anglo American Platinum and Impala Platinum. It's dragged on for nearly 2 weeks now, costing the industry nearly 200 million rand a day. AMCU remains adamant that its demand of 12,500 rand is a fair one. Football, Soweto Giants Kaizer Chiefs have consolidated their place at the top of the Premiership table by beating SuperSport United 1-0 last night. The team of choice, Maritzburg United, beat the University of Pretoria 3-2 in a thrilling match that took place at the Tuck Stadium. Well, it's been a roller coaster week on the political landscape here in South Africa, starting the week with the so-called divorce of the Democratic Alliance and Ekangala SA, barely a week after their much-publicized union. This weekend, we'll be waiting in anticipation for the public protector Thuli Madonsela's report into the spending of taxpayers' money at President Jacob Zuma's Ekangala homestead. And then next week, well, President Zuma will deliver his State of the Nation address. Now, to take all of this into account and give us a bit more insight, is political analyst Professor Stephen Friedman. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
It's been an interesting week on the sort of political landscape. I want to start with the DA, Ekang. It's been a mess, really. Can you just give us your take and summary of it?
Well, I think the problem is that there's a myth in the opposition, and particularly in the DA, that all that they need is to find a black person with some sort of struggle credentials, and then black voters will flock from the ANC to the opposition. There's no truth in this at all, but it leads you to do some foolish things. And what it leads you to do is you get so excited about the fact that Mampela Rampela, who was in the black consciousness movement, wants to join you, that you make all sorts of promises to her without checking out whether she's bothered to speak to her party. So I think it's an important lesson about trying to look for quick fixes. I think the other lesson that the opposition should take from this is that there's this constant, and we still have this constant mania about opposition unity. The opposition must get together.
Yeah.
But actually in our voting system, opposition don't need to get together. In fact, I've argued that if the opposition get together, they will lose votes. They won't gain votes.
Yeah.
The reason being that you can't split the vote in our system. But if you merge opposition parties, then some voters feel they don't have a choice anymore and they don't vote for the opposition, they simply stay at home. So hopefully for the opposition's sake, they will learn lessons from a very embarrassing week and change their strategies accordingly.
What about ethical issues around this supposed funder with funding that came from abroad and this being part of the split? Surely this kind of ethical scenarios must sit in the back of the mind of voters.
Well, I hope so, because I'm one of those, and there are many of us who've been saying for ages that we need laws in this country which force political parties to tell us where they get their money from. And unless we have that, then this sort of thing continues. The other thing we need is better. We have them already, but we need to fine-tune and improve our laws on political party funding so that we don't have a situation. None of us know exactly what happened there, but we shouldn't even have a situation where it's possible to allege that somebody with money can decide what political parties do. So I hope it's going to draw attention to this problem of money in politics.
It's really been a setback for the DA leader, Helen Zille, as well as Mampela Rampele. But who do you think is the one that would take the biggest knock? Surely it could be the credibility of Helen Zille in this space.
Well, it may be Helen. Look, in terms of political parties, DA compared to Ekangala, it's going to be a disaster for Ekangala. The DA has a very loyal support base. It will survive this. Ekangala's a new party trading on its leader. It now has to explain to voters why its leader was prepared to be the presidential candidate of another party. But while the DA doesn't have a problem, Helen Zille and the people around her may have a problem, because we know that there are divisions within the DA.
Yeah.
These will surface after the election, and I think at that stage, fingers will be pointed, and she'll have to do a lot of explaining.
The fallout of this will probably be, most political analysts anyhow said beforehand, that they don't even think that Ekangala would win a single vote or a single seat in Parliament going forward at this election, and therefore this move to join the DA was rather desperate. This could even be worse now after that.
Yes, I mean, I don't know that they won't win a single seat, but certainly we knew that what was happening was that they were not making the progress that they wanted to make. Otherwise, she wouldn't have approached the DA. But clearly they're going to make less progress now. Whether they win one seat or they win no seats, they're certainly not going to be a major force in South African politics.
I want to move on to this weekend, the Ekangala report. There's been delays with this report coming out, and it's now expected over the weekend. People don't really know if it's going to happen. There's talks of more delays. There's talks of not overshadowing the State of the Nation address next week. What do you expect?
Well, I think that the Public Protector will be under some pressure to show that she doesn't get instructed on when to release her reports. On the other hand, I think she's got a juggling act to do, because she doesn't, what the ruling party is doing, what the ANC is doing, is saying, look, you're going to release this at a particular time in order to embarrass us because you're hostile to us. So she will be also under some pressure to make sure that she doesn't appear to be playing party politics. So she's going to have to balance those two things. I certainly think that it's not in her interests to release it, for example, the day before the State of the Nation, because then that creates the impression that you are playing party politics.
The State of the Nation address itself, what do you expect from the President, and is this an opportunity for him to really take a step forward ahead of the election?
Well, I think it is an opportunity. I think that there are two things that it is an opportunity for. The one thing is that if you look at the manifesto of the governing party, and he is, after all, the head of the governing party, it really didn't address, and you were talking in your news introduction about the protests we're seeing in the townships at the moment. Yeah. It didn't, to me, address the burning issue in this country, which is lack of trust. The problem about these protests is not that people don't think they're getting enough goodies, it's that people do not trust people in leadership positions. And one would expect the President and the public, if there is a lack of trust in political leaders, to try to deal with that. The other thing, which is in the ANC manifesto, but is very important to the future of this country, is that he needs to send a message to business and labour, to the economic actors in this country, to say that
I wanted to ask you about the protests. You spoke about that earlier, and there seems to be a criminal element on one side, but is there also a sense of entitlement that's driving some of the violent behaviour that we see at protests throughout the country?
No, but I don't think there's a sense of entitlement. You know, the whole problem is that we don't understand what is motivating people, and I think that we tend to get wrong what is motivating people. The story is always, it's service delivery, which means people want goodies, and then you say, well, why do they burn down the goodies that we give them? I don't think people want goodies. People want to be listened to. People want to be taken seriously. And we don't know, yes, there are always criminal elements in these protests, but we don't know the circumstances in which those libraries were built or those clinics were built, etc. And the real lesson of these protests is that we need to understand a lot more about the lives and the opinions of the majority of South Africans.
Professor, we could go on for the rest of the hour, but thank you very much for joining us today and painting the picture for us a little bit. It's been an interesting week on the political landscape. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Oh, that was Professor Stephen Friedman giving us his unique insights. Moving on, the courts should heed society's call for harsher sentences on violent crimes. Judge Johan Kruger was summing up after sentencing former Nigerian Olympian Ambrose Monye and co-accused Andre Gous to life imprisonment for the 2011 drive-by shooting of Chanel Henning.
The two accused insisting they were innocent. Later, a confession, but only after being convicted of Henning's murder. Judge Kruger said this showed lack of remorse. Kruger also says harsh punishment for such crimes is in the public interest.
The courts must heed society's outcries that violent crime must be dealt with in ways which will serve as a deterrent and prevention to potential and real criminals.
For the Henning family, a judicious verdict.
The judge sent a message through that criminals on the streets can't get away with it, and if they want to come clean, they must come clean at the right time.
Henning was shot in Ferry Glen, east of Pretoria on 8 November 2011. She had just dropped her son off at creche. At the time, she had been involved in a custody battle with her estranged husband, Nico Henning. Henning was arrested in December and is out on bail. This after Gous, his best friend, told the court that Henning had offered him 1 million rand to have his wife killed. Judge Kruger says Gous was motivated by his desire for money and was not forced. Offenses Timo, SABC News, Pretoria.
There's a heavy police presence in Ekangala township near Bronkhorstspruit, east of Pretoria, as police battle to maintain order in that protest-hit area. More than 10 police vehicles blocked the road leading into the township to stop residents going to the main road. Several buildings have been set alight, including a clinic, library, as well as houses. Protesters torched the Zitobeni satellite police station and municipal offices. 31 people arrested for public violence will remain in police custody for another day after a brief court appearance. From Pretoria, we are joined by the SABC's regional editor, Isaac Masemola. Good morning, Isaac. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning to you, and how are you?
Very good today, Isaac. It doesn't seem to be very good on your side of the line, unfortunately. What's the latest in the protest areas east of Pretoria?
Well, for the first time in 6 days, it was quiet overnight. But the residents are saying that they are going to continue protesting until their colleagues who were arrested and remanded in custody are released. But what we know is that the mayor is trying to meet the community today. We'll not just show off the venue, but we will know soon.
What are the residents saying? What will it take for these protests to stop?
Well, they say one of them is high electricity bills, and they also say that they never wanted to be in Gauteng. They've always wanted to be in Mpumalanga. And there were some undertakings that were made when the merger they were taken over from Mpumalanga to Gauteng that were made. But up to now, those undertakings have never been met.
Isaac, what do they say about these high levels of violence and the destruction, really, the torching and vandalism of buildings, libraries and clinics? Surely this is counterproductive if you're destroying the facilities within your own communities. What are the people saying about this?
Well, it is counterproductive, but in any protest, anything is possible, and destruction is where they start. It happens everywhere. I don't think that area is the first to have such a situation.
Now, the media have been warned in certain cases that the situation is very volatile and quite dangerous. You'll be sending a TV crew out there today. How safe is the area, and what do you expect from your team?
Well, our team has been covering the story since it broke. Well, it's a risk that we have to take, but up to so far they've never been threatened, and the police have always been there to assist.
And what has been the reaction of the authorities, the Tshwane Metro, for instance?
Well, they have been engagements, but the community wanted the mayor personally to listen to their demands, and we are told that the mayor is going to meet some section of the community today. Probably this will bring to an end this protest.
Let's just move on to the real big case that's been going on there in Pretoria. It's been the Henning murder case. Lots of interest around the country. Just recap for us yesterday, and then tell us, how do we expect things to proceed now with the husband as well?
Well, Bronkhorstspruit and Monya were sentenced to life sentence yesterday, and the prosecution had demanded that they be sentenced to 20 years, but the judge said the murder overshadowed what the prosecution was thinking, and the husband was arrested, and now he's on a 10 million rand bail, and he'll soon go on trial. And following the confession of the two people who were sentenced yesterday, we think that more gory details of what happened will come out.
Is there any other news coming out of the capital today, Isaac?
Yes, the IEC is going to announce on how they are going to work this weekend on the last voter registration for the forthcoming elections. And we've also been told that there's a service delivery protest, this time on the northwest of the city in Hebron. We've sent our team there. We'll see what's coming out of it.
Well, we'll look forward to what you guys put together there for us. Everybody wants to see, Isaac, what's happening outside of Bronkhorstspruit today, I would think. Thank you for that contribution. That's our regional editor, Isaac Masemola, coming to you live from Pretoria with an update as to what's happening in the capital of South Africa. Let's take a quick look at what you want to say and what you're thinking about on social media. Sir Gauchelo, I wonder who knighted you, Gauchelo. Rest in peace to the 8 miners who died at Harmony's gold Doornkop mine. As it has become the norm, production will continue unhindered, he says. Kanyisani Dlomo says, one death is one too many. Sympathies and condolences to the family of mine workers who died at Harmony Gold's Doornkop gold mine. That is the sentiments, I would think, of the entire country. Corporate Busy says 8 bodies recovered at Harmony Mine and 1 still missing. Motsepe has got problems and compensations to settle. Sandile Butelezi says sad stuff as 8 miners were found dead underground at Harmony's Doornkop mine. And then Department of Minerals of South Africa says the following. Minister Susan Shabangu will be going to the Harmony Doornkop mine this morning following the incident there. That's from the at GCIS Media. That was a little public service announcement, keeping you up to date what's happening. After a short break, we cross to Kenya for the latest on the ICC criminal case against the leaders in that country. This is Newsroom on SABC News.
Sometimes a lot of people in fact, do not have access firstly to palliative care. Secondly, even if they do,
So what? Do we just kill them if they don't have access to palliative care?
I think she's actually crucifying my question, with all due respect.
If you actually actively assist somebody to die, then you are convicted of murder.
Who should take the burden of terminating a life?
It's very problematic for doctors to play God.
That's Rights and Recourse, Sundays 2 p.m. on SABC News.
Gaming enthusiasts, including us here at Network, indulged in over 80 exhibits that included the Xbox One and Nintendo. Visitors also got to try out PlayStation 4 computer entertainment system, which was unveiled at Rage 2013.
I just came here to see the Xbox One and the PS4, see which one I'd buy.
If you have close to 400,000 Rand to spare, then you can buy the new UHD TV set. Samsung has launched cheaper models, but cheaper doesn't necessarily mean cheap. South Africa has just received the country's first surgical robot, but the robot isn't quite taking over from your surgeon just yet.
That's Network, Sundays 7:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. This is Newsroom. Parliament is facing a huge workload that have to be processed in the next few months before the expiry of the current 5-year term of Parliament. The current term of Parliament is said to end ahead of the 2014 national election. In terms of the Constitution, currently 24 bills are before the National Assembly and 18 are before the National Council of Provinces, making it 42. That's a number of bills that have yet to be passed before the elections. But not all these bills will be passed in the remaining time for Parliament to round off its activities. Now, from our parliamentary studio, we are joined by ANC Chief Whip, Mr. Stone Sizani. Thank you, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
I don't know if you've heard what I've just read. It's that some of the bills that will not be passed before the elections coming. If that is the case, would you have a priority list, and how would you then proceed with this process?
Well, basically, the biggest problem is when people who program the bills discard the working in the evenings and working early morning and working on Fridays as well. And we have 41 bills in total. And I'm talking about those that come back from the NCOP to an NA for concurrence. And we're working around the clock to make sure that all bills in front of us are processed and finalized. We do not believe that it is possible for these bills not to be finalized this year, precisely because we are better prepared, have been working longer hours. Even during recess, we have been calling MPs to come back to Parliament to process the bills. We are confident that we will finalize the work.
Why is it that Parliament doesn't work on a Friday like all of us in the rest of the country, sir?
Usually, Fridays are reserved for committees to tidy up the work that has been returned from Parliament, or to tidy up the work that must be prepared for the House to come into for processing, either for concurrence or to be dispatched to the NCOP. So many committees that are tidying up the work of the House are working on Fridays during the week, Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, is either the committees are preparing the bills that come in, or they are preparing those that are coming in from the executive to be ready to come into the House.
Mr. Sizani, can you just give us an idea of what kind of bills are still out there that needs to be handled in the time that's left?
Well, we have 41, like I said, those that are with the NCOP, those that are with the NA, and those that are coming back from the NCOP. We've got 20 now in front of the committees of the NA. We've got 9 that are ready to get into the House to be approved. There are 2 that are coming from the NCOP to be processed for concurrence, and there are those that we have received that we must still process and finalize before the 13th of March.
Are you confident, sir, that the members will be equal to this massive task that awaits them in this short period of time that's left?
We have proven that when the members are attending to their duties in the committees, when they are attending to their duties in the House, and they work all the hours that are required, they can meet the challenge. It's only when they are AWOL members that we have a logjam. But we are confident this time, when everybody is rushing to go and canvass for elections, they will put all the effort to make sure that the work that we have is finalized.
And you are happy that everyone at the moment are working together towards this common goal?
Well, it does not appear that there is any peaceful resistance from any quarter, neither from ourselves nor the opposition. It does look like that everybody is serving the nation in an appropriate way.
Well, thank you for the work that you do. That's the ANC Chief Whip, Stone Sizani, coming to us live from Parliament, giving us an update as to the tough work that's ahead of the general elections in Parliament, with up to 40, well, he said 41, we think it's up to 42 bills that still have to go across the benches and be cleaned up before the elections in a couple of months' time. Well, moving on to now, prosecutors at the International Criminal Court say the court has no realistic chance of successfully prosecuting Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta. The prosecution expressed its frustration with the Kenyan government, admitting that the trial against Kenyatta was doomed unless the Kenyan government assists. Now, at the center of the row, President Uhuru Kenyatta's financial records. Now, SABC East Africa correspondent Sarah Kimani joins us from Nairobi on the line in Kenya. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
Sarah, tell us why all of a sudden the prosecutors need time to obtain additional evidence and to consider whether such evidence will be sufficient to prosecute the Kenyan president.
Well, he's actually not asking for additional evidence. During Fatou Bensouda's trip to Kenya about a year ago, she actually said that she had been in a dispute with the Kenyan government because she has been asking the Kenyan government for what at that time she referred as important documents, which she said she was not getting. At that time, the Kenyan government promised that she would be getting them. It now emerges during yesterday's proceedings that indeed those documents are President Kenyatta's financial records. And the prosecutor is saying that if he can get these financial records, then he will be able to show that there was irregular movement of large sums of money from his account to his intermediaries who allegedly were used to fund the post-election chaos.
And what about the 2 witnesses, the 2 key witnesses, they say, that now decided not to give evidence? Have you got a little bit more information on them for us?
Well, one of the witnesses said that he was no longer willing to testify. The other one actually saying that he lied in his testimony, in his written testimony, and that he has changed his mind. However, the lawyer for the victims yesterday saying that indeed the reason most of the people are pulling out of the case, both in the Kenyatta and the Ruto case, there have been a lot of witnesses who have pulled out. He was saying that there has been a climate of fear instilled on the witnesses. One, because now Uhuru Kenyatta, the accused, is now the President of the Republic of Kenya. Deputy President William Ruto is the Deputy President. And so they say, and also they they say that the utterances sometimes of these leaders during public gatherings have actually created a climate of fear where people feel that if you testify against the head of state or the deputy head of state, you will be seen as an enemy. So he was trying to say that indeed the reason these witnesses are not testifying is not so much because they may have lied, but because they fear for their lives and the lives of their families.
Sarah, and what is the feeling in the country now? Do people believe that this case now has no leg to stand on and that President Uhuru Kenyatta is now in the clear?
Well, one of the things that emerged yesterday and during the primetime news here in Kenya is that the Director of Public Prosecutions also coming out to say that there had been about 4,000 post-election related violence cases which were likely to be tried here in Kenya in a special division of the court which were due to form called the International Crimes Division, but now saying that even those cases cannot stand prosecution, cannot stand the test of time. And that brought a lot of frustration from opinion polls that were carried out in all the three major television stations. A lot of Kenyans feeling that with justice not likely to come out of the International Criminal Court and not likely now to come out from the local court, that indeed we may never know exactly what happened during the post-election violence, and that indeed Kenyans may never ever get justice, whether here or abroad.
And what is the sentiment in Kenya now towards the International Criminal Court? Has it changed at all?
Well, a lot of people feel the other prosecutor, Luis Moreno Ocampo, did a shoddy job, that he was too quick to play politics. He was too quick to get some people out of the election that was due immediately after the post-election violence, that is 5 years after the post-election violence. And so a lot of people feel he could have done a better job if he had taken his time. Also, some feeling that the international community played into the Kenyan politics and did not allow the cases to be tried here, although it is indeed clear that the Kenyan government tried to form a tribunal here, but members of parliament at the time refused.
And Sarah, finally, how are these developments all affecting the political climate there in Kenya?
It's too early to tell because Deputy President Deputy President William Ruto's case is still ongoing. We still don't know what the outcome of President Uhuru Kenyatta's case will be now. We understand within 7 days from yesterday, we may actually get a direction of whether the International Criminal Court will completely withdraw the case, terminate the case, or decide to stop it for some time. But what we know for sure is that should Deputy President William Ruto's case continue, then there is probably going to be a rift in the coalition between him and President Kenyatta, with a feeling from the Ruto camp that maybe President Kenyatta may have played his cards better than Ruto, and therefore dividing the two. In terms of the rest, the opposition feeling almost lost because they thought they could get justice and that they could almost outwit the country's ruling party through the ICC.
Well, Sarah, thank you very much for putting us into the picture as things develop around, prosecutors in the International Criminal Court say the court has now no realistic chance of successfully prosecuting Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta. Sarah Kamani, our East African correspondent, giving us a complete update there. Let's take a look quickly before we go to a break of what you're thinking and saying on social media. Tabo says working and school kids were late and Golden Highway was packed with traffic jam because the main roads in Sebokeng was closed. That's Atlian Manis. Tomorrow said it seems South Africa is going up in flames in all this violent vandalism. Sebokeng, the government is too slow. This is the fight of the unemployed. That boy from the Vaal says, seems like Sebokeng protesters wanted to appear on TV more than they wanted service delivery. Oh, everybody wants to be famous, he says. Tevelo Khadebe says, hoping that this riot ends soon. People getting injured, killed, and most of the Sebokeng residents are kept hostage. Not good. Daniel Ralevatani says, now the tension moves from Relele over to Sebokeng. Who's next? Well, that's the million-dollar question that everybody wants to know is, are these protests going to spread, and what do these people really want? One gentleman said there that he thinks the protesters simply want to be on TV in front of the cameras. Maybe we should keep our news crews away from it then. After a short break, we asked the question, are South African parents forcing their children into sporting careers because of the lure of infinite riches? This is Newsroom on SABC News.
I vote SA.
Why do you vote?
My vote is my voice.
Voting is still the most critical voice any citizen has.
Ik vote van is bevangen.
You vote. Can vote in, do the right thing.
I want to use my voice.
Choice is what I have.
Any citizen has.
If you don't vote, you can't complain.
Vote South Africa.
I am voting.
I get to vote. Why? What's your why?
Look.
Gonna get a free day, come on.
Nice.
IEC. I vote South Africa.
I'm falling for you.
Wanda, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And then spit like. You really like sushi?
Not really, eh? But I do eat sushi.
At some stage, actually, I was suicidal.
If I'm having a nightmare, okay. Woo, Toto. You're going to have a big bum. Have you guys ever, kicked the ball together with Daddy?
Yeah. I mean, he kicked me more than the ball.
That's Up Close, Monday to Thursday, 2:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. This is Newsroom on SABC News. Time for us to take a look at our top stories. Rescue teams are continuing the search for the 9 miners who are still unaccounted for after a fire broke out at Harmony's Doornkop gold mine west of Johannesburg last night. On Tuesday night, 8 miners were rescued from an underground refuse bay. Operations at the mine have been suspended since. Wage talks between striking mining union AMCU and platinum producers have been adjourned to allow the CCMA to talk to the parties individually. The mediation process is aimed at resolving the strike at Lonmin, Anglo American Platinum and Impala Platinum. And Soweto Giants Kaizer Chiefs have consolidated their place at the top of the Premiership table by beating SuperSport United 1-0 last night. The team of choice, Maritzburg United, beat the University of Pretoria 3-2 in a thrilling match at Tuck Stadium in Pretoria. Yesterday in Bloemfontein, the parents of a 10-year-old girl who was allegedly forced to practice sport too extensively appeared on charges of attempted murder and child neglect. Prosecutors claim the girl was made to swim continuously in a dam near Bloemfontein while her mother and father watched from the sidelines. Now, sport has always played a big part in South African history, but when does it reach the point when it gets out of hand? We are joined by Brad Bing from the Sport Coaching and Development Organisation Sporting Chance from Cape Town. Good morning, Brad. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, hello, Eben.
Brad, we live in a country where sport really is part of our DNA. Can we just start off this conversation by just putting in the picture how important it is for children to be involved in sport in order to live a healthy and balanced lifestyle?
Yeah, but I don't think that our focus should just be on sport. I think it should be on educating our children about leading a healthy and active lifestyle. We all know how important it is for health reasons, and we also know how important it is that children who participate in sport, it's been proven that in actual fact the academic results are a hell of a lot better. We also know that sport unifies a nation. It gives people a lot of hope. And obviously what you're wanting to do is the children that are coming through the system now, you want to give them some kind of progress in life, that they can actually go on to become our future heroes on the sporting field. So sport is vital, not only just from a future point of view of creating heroes in South Africa, but also from a lifestyle.
Brad, what do you make of this story where parents are now appearing in court for child neglect and attempted murder after forcing their daughter to swim laps on a farm dam? And do we have these kinds of cases where parents are pushing children on the sporting front in order to become achievers? Do we have an increase in that in South Africa as well?
Yeah, I think there's a fine line, Eben, between being a supportive parent and being an over-pushy parent. I think that's the thing we've got to monitor, or parents have got to monitor. What we've also got to do, though, is we've got to be able to monitor the development of our children. Eben, sometimes you've got children who are physically stronger than others at a certain age, and obviously those kids that are physically stronger get pushed a lot harder. Those kids that aren't, obviously what you try and do, they try and keep up with their peers, and obviously sometimes they struggle to do that. So that's an important balance we've got to find. And also what we've got to do is, as parents, we've got to be very careful to push our kids too hard, too quickly, too soon, because research has shown us how many children lose interest once they start being able to make their own decisions. And that's where you got to, as a parent, have got to understand what's good for your kid and what's not good for your kid. And also as a coach, you should be qualified enough to be able to understand what's good for the kid and what's not for the good for the kid.
Now, Brad, you've been involved with children and developing sport and coaching and that sort of thing for a quarter of a century. It sounds like a very long time. But just tell us the importance of the fun element for children and how it's important it is to keep the fun element in sport.
Fun, Eben, is incredibly important. I mean, it's certainly the reason for all children wanting to be participating in sport. All kids come together because they know that playing sport is a lot of fun. But obviously with that fun comes a lot of hard work, Eben.
Yeah.
So what's important is that, again, that instead of the parents becoming overly anxious, they've got to work out the balance between pushing those kids hard and making sure that those kids have a lot of fun, because otherwise they'll end up trying to live their lives through the children. I just know through the Sporting Chance programs that we've run over the years, Eben, that we've created a three-tier component to our business model. The first one is when you've got the kids at a very early age. What you try and do then at the 4 and 5, 6-year-old group is you have an absolute lot of fun. There's little or no skills taught to these kids. It's just absolutely, you get out there, you play fun, and if I can say it, you trip each other, you bowl a ball, it comes out the back of your hand, you play soccer, you miss the goalposts, etc. When you start getting older, you get into a 7, 8, 9, 10 group, you obviously have a hell of a lot of fun, but the skill level increases dramatically. And from there, when you get to 11 to the age of 14, that's when you've got to start turning around and saying, why are we actually playing this game? I'm playing this game because I want to take my skill to a new level.
Yeah.
But that's when coaching comes into it, because you've got to have people at a young age who can teach you how to have a lot of fun. From there, you've got to have people who can teach you how to have a lot of fun whilst learning the skill.
Yeah.
And then obviously the fun continues and the passion continues. And I've never come across anyone who plays sport who's passionate about what they do, who doesn't want to keep learning. So that's vital. And then from there, you've got to take the kid. You've got to be able to identify those kids that are playing the game for fun and will become recreational cricketers, and those kids will become professional sports people.
Just what would your advice then be to parents who are now got a 10, 12, 11-year-old child who are looking, and who's got a bit of talent, who are looking to take that step?
Yeah, Eben, all parents want their kid to succeed. That's priority number one. We know that. What's important from our point of view is to offer them that advice and turn around and say to them, they've got to be realistic as well. They've got to assess their talent at a young age, and that's when professional people come into it and where they can offer advice. But certainly the advice I give anyone in South Africa and any child that comes through the Sporting Chance system, Eben, is the first thing you do is you complete your secondary education, high school education, and from there, what you do is you go and try and get yourself some kind of tertiary education, be it academic or be it a trade. That is vital, because too many times we've witnessed over the last 20-odd years, too many kids who have shown huge potential only to get injured in their first year of playing professional sport and have nothing to fall back on, or those kids who want to continue playing sport, but in actual fact reach a certain level and can't go any higher. Dad, mom believe that they are better than what they are, and unfortunately they bomb out. And you can see throughout South Africa how many sportsmen we know that that have huge potential that never go on to achieve. And we also know that there's only certain sport codes in this country that pay properly. The other sport codes are the Cinderella sports that are actually fighting for the kind of scraps, if we can call it that. So it's vital that the advice I give anyone is get yourself a tertiary education, and that's got to be priority number one on the parents' list. And then secondary is to focus on the kids' potential. However, if you do have something exceptional, believe you me, the coaches will pick them up, and they'll be in squads from a young age.
Brad, thank you very much for that contribution this morning. That's Brad being the founder of Sporting Chance, an organization that has looked after the best interest of young sporting children in and around South Africa for the last 24 years. Well, we move on now. It's time for us to take a look at what's been happening in the online space. Now, production editor Bongi Mukhali is with us, as she does, all her colleagues do, every Thursday. That is, we close the show every Thursday by taking a look at what's happening. And Bongi, good morning. Thanks for joining.
Good morning, Eben.
What's been happening? Lots of things going on, but what's been the sort of highlights so far?
Lots been happening today. Obviously, the breaking news with the finding of the bodies of the 8 miners. So we've been kept quite busy, keeping that updated on our site. People can go and have a look at the story. We also have an audio clip from AM Live spoke to NUM's Frans Baleni. And he was saying that this is completely unacceptable and that they know that business will continue, that the companies will just give their condolences. But life goes on. This accident happens with the backdrop of the mining in Daba. Also, that's happening in
Cape Town at the moment.
In Cape Town. And NUM is actually going to be marching now to the mining in Daba. I think it probably was a scheduled march, issues of safety, but they take on a whole lot more prominence and a whole lot more importance.
And all of this on the back of the AMCU strike that's going on about, the kind of increases in salaries going on. So all happening in the mining sector.
All happening in the mining sector. It's all in the forefront. AMCU's, the strike's been going on, I think it's now coming up to about 2 weeks now of the strike going on. You've had in the news bulletins that they've adjourned the talks now for the CCMA to see if they can step in, see what they can do about it. But you have to wonder what happens with these the AMCU talks in light of the miners' bodies having been found today. I mean, they just cast a pall over everything, and people might be saying, well, then don't you really think that the demands for higher wages are actually quite justified if you don't know if you and 8 of your colleagues will be dead at the end of the day.
Absolutely, and at the moment in South Africa there seems to be a protest springing up everywhere. We've got unhappy people in the mining sector, but general what they call service delivery protests. Sebokeng being the latest after Relele last week. This week it's Sebokeng, and one person's been shot dead again.
One person shot dead, unfortunately, and it continues this morning. I was looking at your tweets earlier about traffic being backed up on those routes because the roads are being closed off. You combine this with what's happening in Zitobeni early on. You chatted to our editor in Pretoria. This just seems to get worse and worse and worse. I was listening to one of the police spokespeople who were saying that they've had to actually respond to something like 6 protests per day. So it's getting completely out of control, the issue with the protests. But we've got people who are commenting on our website about this. They've got stuff to say. They're sharing their pictures with us. You have to wonder, though, like leading up to the elections, are we going to see more? Is there anything that government can do to actually try to bring down what's going on so that people can focus
of protests going on? And of course, social media people are all over it. SABC News Online is where you can send those contributions. That's where our digital platforms really live. But wasteful expenditure, I want to move on because time is forever the enemy on television, my dear. Wasteful expenditure in Parliament? Is anything new?
Well, I think that we might have perhaps a glimmer of an answer as to why we might be having these service delivery protests. The new Auditor General, Kimi Makwetu, he released his report yesterday, and what came to the light was that there was a hell of a lot of wasteful expenditure, but the government that was leading in the wasteful expenditure stakes was the Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Department, which administers local government. So if they're wasting almost $500 million and you're having service delivery protests, you might start connecting the dots.
There we go. That is certainly. You can go to our website, sabc.co.za/news. You'll get all these features. Let's go and have a look at who's wasting all of our taxpayers' money. Cooperative governance in traditional affairs, 503.3 million South African rand. Is that right?
Yes.
That certainly is irregular expenditure in millions of rand. That is certainly very alarming. Public works, correctional services, and transport. Wow. Defense. There's a lot to be answered for. Bongi, just tell us quickly. I want to move on because people are talking about wasteful expenditure and then petrol going up, and everyone's complaining that life is so hard. The petrol price is almost 14 rand a litre.
Yes. People might be wishing that, well, perhaps if there wasn't so much wasteful expenditure, they'd be able to cushion these increasing hikes. We've had 2 already this year. We do have an interview on our website with the economist Chris Hart. People can go and have a listen to that. It's quite interesting, talking about how the cost of living is just increasingly just going up. There doesn't seem to be a break for anybody. We've got the e-tolls. We've got food prices going up. It's a financial, it's a crisis.
Well, it is a crisis. We were going to talk about Kaizer Chiefs, but fortunately we've run out of time. Buccaneers for life. Bongi, thank you for joining us, my dear.
Pleasure as always.
Thank you for joining us today. No, he's talking about Kaizer Chiefs and all the victories that they're having at the moment. But this will too come to pass, as they say. You've been watching Newsroom on SABC News. This show is broadcast live every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. from Johannesburg here in South Africa. Highlights are rebroadcast at 2 every afternoon and then repeated at 5 a.m. the very next morning. We also stream live on YouTube every day between 9 and 10 a.m. with a full show available all day on our YouTube channel, just in case you miss it. You're watching SABC News. This is Newsroom, where we love it in the morning.